I'm ever so sorry. Okay. Right, Godwin. Gosh, I got something in my eye. Godwin?
Yeah, I was just to say to record. Just to say to record,
Oh,
that's
okay.
what you've done.
Okay, yeah. All right, great.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that these are things, so when you're paying attention to the case studies that you're going to get that we send to you, it's worth underlining certain significant things. So we've got no concerns at school. The abuse from Katia to her mother has gone on for some months. And remember, Ola left a year ago. Did anyone pick that up? Did anybody pick that up? Okay, all right. No, exactly. This is why it's important to read the case study. All right, okay, we're going through it. Mum has tried hard, yeah. So you need to think about whether or not he is going to be included in this assessment. Hide seriousness from the family and covered up all the bruises. Dad has expressed concerns about Mum being too soft on Katia, particularly when he's witnessed Katia being quite disrespectful and hurtful towards Mum, usually verbally. Well, it has been verbal. He's not experienced any Katia's anger when it's surfaced, but has been extremely clear and firm. So clear and firm, it doesn't say that he's hit anyone here. And clear and firm, we're looking at probably verbally addressed the matter with Katia. Yeah. Okay. So basically what I'm trying to say is don't read into things that are not there. Obviously you've got to hypothesize, but try and do it within the case study. I've got something in my eye, I'm ever so sorry. Recent events. Dad takes Samia and Asha away for the week to visit his parents. Okay. The police are called. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I've got something in my eye. The police are called following an incident that involved Mum and Katia. The neighbour who called the police reported shouting and swearing from the home and actually witnessed Katia hitting Mum in the face. The police arrive. Mum explains that the argument between the two of them and that Katia accidentally caught Mum in the face. The police are concerned and they leave Mum info with regards to accessing support, but explain that they may have to intervene if called again. So again, intervene if called again. What does that mean? As Mum was very convincing, saying that it was adolescent blues, and the family are not known to the police or social services, the police leave satisfied that things are under control. Again, think about that. Repeated reports send out an alarm. There's no known reports here. Later on in the week, Mum goes to hospital having sustained a broken arm after Katia had hit her with a chair. Mum is seen by the hospital social worker and the situation is uncovered. So Mum then reveals what's been going on between her and Katia. Okay. Any comments so far? Are you clear about how we're reading a case study? Somebody's put something in the chat. Was that just to do with the recording? Okay, all right. So let's turn to who needs to be protected and under what legislation / guidance. Group 1. Burst of energy. Yes. Jamel? Were you in group 1?
I did say I wasn't feeling well. I think I was in group 1, but I think someone else has their mic on.
Okay.
Yes, so in group 1, we spoke about how the mum would need to be protected initially, but also the siblings as well, because they're also at risk of being harmed, because if Katia, not assuming, but there is a possible risk of that. So we did talk about, should I go into the legislation that we picked, or should I not?
So just a little bit about, because I want you to do both. I want you to, because there's no point in having legislation unless you understand how it's going to be applied. So why do you think mum needs to be protected?
Purely because that's who's experiencing the abuse.
Right. Good.
Obviously because of the 2 incidents that have now happened, and who else is there to say that it couldn't happen again? We also spoke about there's a clear difference in the way that discipline is displayed to Katia. So originally we said the mother should be protected, but also the other siblings that were in the house.
Okay. So who are the other siblings in the house?
The other siblings, it's not Olu because he left a year ago. It's the 16-year-old sister. I forgot her name. Let me check.
That's okay. Samia.
Samia.
Yeah.
Oh, what's she? Samia, and then Asha is 6 years old.
Okay.
As well.
Okay, so now you're going to turn to the legislation.
Yeah.
In terms of mum being protected.
So in terms of mum, we spoke about the Care Act 2014, which was spoken about in the lecture. Let me just go back onto it. Slide 36. Yes, so it says for a safeguarding response to be required under the Care Act 2014, the person has to meet the usual 3 criteria: 1, having care and support needs; 2, experiencing or being at risk of abuse or neglect; and 3, being unable to protect themselves because of those needs. So we didn't really go into depth, but we did agree that the mother did fit the criteria.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shamal.
You're welcome.
And you weren't feeling that well today. You did very well. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other people want to chip in for question 1 very quickly? Anybody else from the other groups? Do they have similar things or something different? Godwin, I think you've got your hand up. Let me put Shamel's down. I think, Godwin, you've got your hand up. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just waiting for you to make sure you talk with Shamel. Yeah.
Okay.
Olu, who's just left. He's just left. It's for work, but we don't know if he could be, the trigger for her behavior. So that's definitely, I think that's something that needs to be, brought to the attention that if people haven't been aware of. He's left. He could be leaving for work, but there could be other reasons behind that. But like you said last week, we should be thinking outside the box. And just because somebody's left.
Okay, so you're saying that is something that you might want to take into consideration.
Yeah, I would take it into consideration that he's just left, and it seems that the 12-year-old is there's some form of violence going on there. We don't know where it's coming from, so we should put that into the factors when we're investigating.
Okay, so the fact that I've put in here that Olu left home and moved abroad a year ago for work, and that the abuse from Katia to mum has gone on for some months. Is that saying anything? I mean, it's not to say that there isn't a history there, but just think about that, people. If this is new and it's happened after he has left. Okay, all right, okay. I've got Paul on the line. Paul? Thanks, Godwin, thank you. Okay.
Hey, I don't know, I might have missed it if Shamel mentioned it, but in terms of legislation, Yeah, did she mention the Serious Crime Act?
No,
Okay.
I just mentioned the Safeguarding Adults,
Okay.
the Care Act
Um,
2014.
yeah. Oh, because we had that, we had those as well. So I'm glad that you backed that up here for us. We were thinking if the Serious Crime Act, Section 76, would be applicable.
Okay. So why would that be applicable?
Well, hold on, let me just get the slide back up there. I can't find it now. Well, it didn't mention that it didn't apply to children or because it's a serious crime. Well, not. Yeah,
Okay.
so there's a pattern of controlling behaviour. I guess maybe, and it's against the family member within the same household.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you want to come in? Thanks, Paul. Jennifer, you
Sorry,
want to
yeah.
come in?
I was just going to say that there should be a section 47 of the Children's Act, an investigation into the daughter, because there's obviously some safeguarding issues around the daughter and the mum and the whole family, and there should be an investigation into the kind of understanding what's going on. The first point of kind of what should be going on is there should be some early intervention stuff happening with the family. So things like parenting courses for the parents, because there's obviously some boundary issues around mum's parenting, and maybe some investigation into what's going on in the family home as to why she might be behaving like that. So I think a section 47 would cover a lot of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that if you remember one of the earlier slides, I was saying that the domestic violence laws that we have today do not include children under the age of 16. So I think that what Jennifer's just said, absolutely right, that the legislation, so just to remind you that children can be criminally prosecuted in this country at the age of 10. At the age of 10. Okay, and they obviously won't be dealt as adults. It's a separate court, separate processes, different processes. So when we're looking at who needs to be protected, the Care Act. Now, the reason why I put in the Care Act is because social workers won't be dealing with all adults that suffer from domestic violence. However, if the adult who is suffering from domestic violence either has children whereby they come under the Children Act, or the adult has got specific health needs that bring them under the Care Act, then social workers would have to intervene. And that's why I was saying it's interesting that you use the Care Act, because mum wouldn't come under that legislation unless she has been assessed separately to have other specific needs. So we are dealing with, and this is why we're saying also about how unreported child to parent abuse is, we are dealing with legislation under the Children Act here. So Jennifer's absolutely right. We'll be looking at possibly a section 47, an assessment, because there are possible concerns to the other two children, although you've got a 16-year-old, but you've also got a 6-year-old. So when we talk about legislation and guidance, given that our domestic violence laws do not at this precise moment in time cover children under 16, what other actions do you think could be taken here, given that what I've just said about children can be criminally prosecuted at the age at age 10? Jennifer?
Well, I was just going to say it's probably not in the child's or the family's best interest for the child to be criminally criminally prosecuted at this time. I mean, if there's a long-standing ongoing issues where the initial intervention hasn't made any difference, or issues becoming really high risk, then you would consider it. But I think that it's not in anyone's best interest at this point to do criminal proceedings.
Yeah. My question was, is what other legislation do you think that you could, what other legal actions do you think could be taken? What happens if the child ends up stabbing mum? Godwin?
Still, you know, I think you said it, the Crime Disorder Act, Section 76, that was mentioned, because there's a pattern of behavior. And there's also something, if we look at the notes, the police will intervene again if there's a next action. So when the daughter's broken the mum's arm, the police will definitely be involved. So I think, you know.
So the police, just like Jennifer said, the police would want to look at resolving this because it's a young child, but the police can also take action. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Dawn, you've got it. The police can take action, and they could arrest the child. She's 12.
Yeah.
And what Dawn has just said is absolutely right. Do you want to come in there, Dawn?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Godwin.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, Section 31, where the child is beyond parental control. So the child would be removed from the home, and well, pending an investigation, and where the local authority could, within the first 8 weeks, the local authority could look to apply for an ICO for that child.
Yeah, absolutely. So trying to avoid arresting the child, there is a possibility of removing the child under the children's law, because the child may well be seen as out of control. Yeah, okay. So I've got here, which is probably the same. What legal interventions do you think would be appropriate? So group 2.
Hey, hello. So legal intervention, we're a little bit, to be honest, a little bit stuck.
Okay.
So we're looking at maybe like early intervention teams and looking at trying to work on the dynamic between the family. I was wondering if maybe the protection from harassment. So.
Okay.
It's
a tricky one, isn't it? Because again,
yeah.
I've said the domestic violence laws that as they stand, don't take into account children under 16. So,
okay.
Yeah. So again, we'll be looking at the Children Act, and again, I think we've already said that in relation to the fact that there'll be the possibility legal interventions maybe. If we don't want the child to come into care under Section 31, what other interventions could we take to try and lessen this? So we don't go to court. Any takers? Yeah, Marianne, the Care Act would refer to if the mother was seen as a vulnerable adult and she'd have to meet certain criteria. And in this case, she hasn't met that criteria, although she is under attack from her daughter. So question 1, the intervention could be that we remove under the police or we remove under social services. Yeah. Legal interventions here. So if we don't want to, well done, if we don't want to use legislation if we don't want to use the Care Act and we don't want to use a care order, what other interventions could we provide here?
Like Jenny said.
I don't know what section 35 is, Paul. Yep, you've got section 17. Yep, children in need. You can look at that. But what else? Paul, you got your hand up?
Hey, I don't know if I might have got it wrong, but Section 35 of the Children's Act, it looks at like supervising the child and befriending the child.
Yep.
That,
Yep.
I don't know, yeah.
Yep. You could also think about section 20, where it's an agreement. David's got in there, where it's an agreement for mum and between the parents for the child to have voluntary care. I think that last week when we had when Fiona was talking about it, she's saying we don't call it respite, but it could be that the agreement is for the child to be looked after by the local authority with the parents' permission, because again we're saying that domestic violent laws do not cover children under the age of 16. It would be the police and the Children Act. Okay. Group 3. Yes, you can do. Yeah. However, parents can remove any. Yep. As a social worker, what advice would you give to mum and dad? Were you in group 3, Godwin? Godwin, were you in group 3? Come in.
Yeah, I'm not sure what group I was in actually. To tell you the truth, I was just like.
Although I said to you all, take a note. Okay.
I know. I did take a note of that one. No.
Okay.
Okay. I'll wait for you to group 3 to answer. I'll come back. Is that okay?
Yes, that's absolutely fine. So as a social worker, okay. Group 3, what advice would you give mum and dad? How would you go about trying to support this family? Yep, well done. Consistent approach to parenting. Yep. What else? Support for families and friends. Yep, thanks, Anne. I don't know if you were in group 3. Okay. Family counselling, support for family and friends. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Anne. Anybody else want to jump in as a social worker? Parenting classes. Yep. What else? What else would you consider to be appropriate in this family? Consent to possible CAMS, yep. Intervention, well done, Dawn, yep. What else would be key in terms of advice to mum and dad, apart from the approach in parenting classes? Godwin?
I don't know if people mentioned it before. I was under the section 20, but this is family therapy.
Okay, so you could be looking at a family group conference or discussion around whereby the family come together. So we talked about parenting classes and about trying to get to why this situation has happened.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. But also, as qualifying social workers, would you actually mention the fact that if the incidences are so severe that you would consider removing the child?
That's at the extreme. Would you say it's at the extreme bit, or would you say it's quite near?
What do people think? You've got their strengths-based approach with the family. Yep. What do people think?
Systems theory, I did mention that, to look at the situation. But
would that come into your discussion? I know you keep saying it's extreme, but it's providing the family with opportunities as well as what the options are, and the possible consequences of trying to manage a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, you've got to give them.
Yeah,
I think
the
family's got to give them the chance, isn't it? Under the 20, the Children's Act. It says it's paramount that we work with the family first. So I think we use systems theory to look at the strengths and weaknesses, and approach the family to see what they would do, how we would work, and then after the care plan, I think it's 6 months. If it doesn't work, then we're saying, look, it's not worked, and we may have to consider that the local authorities take your child into, you know.
And these are things that you'd need to look at. I mean, Jennifer, you're absolutely right. Talk about the ability of them to be able to safeguard, absolutely.
Yeah.
The mother, but also the other children in the home. Absolutely. Being transparent on what may happen if things escalate. Absolutely, Florence, without a doubt. I'm going to let you guys go off and see whether or not there's been any cases or research into children killing their families. I'm pretty sure there are. Yeah. Okay. And what about the child? How would you approach Katia, group 4? Thanks, Godwin. These questions are in no particular order. Group 4. Was there a group 4 in the house?
I would approach Katia with the understanding that I would engage her in not in a questioning model as such, but I would engage her in such a way that she may be free to open up why she has such a behavioral pattern, what is driving it. Because remember, if we look back at the mom, when all these incidences were happening over a period of time, she did not want this to be known. What was she trying to cover? Maybe she was pretty aware of the consequences that maybe if this violent conduct is reported, I might end up losing my child into care. Yes. But also we need to find out from Katia why she is behaving that way, because it's not natural for kids to behave in such a way, and it's not their desire, it's not in their best interest to harm anyone. So she needs to be talked to. I would talk to Katia, and she will be able to open up and say some things. She might even reveal some issues.
That's interesting. So in what order would you do that then, Darlington? So if you were going to assess this family, you're going in to do an investigation, whether it's a children in need, section 17 or a 47, what would be your first port of call?
It would be my section 17 of the children need, because okay, already that
there are two pieces.
The behavior, because as the behavior is being triggered, it could be triggered by something that has been happening behind closed doors, something that was happening when in secret, something that is happening in secret, and it is only exposing it. She's venting her anger because of what is happening in secret.
Okay, so Mercy's got in here. Dawn, I've got here. Jennifer's got therapeutic independent listening with clear boundaries. Yep. Dawn's got build trust. Absolutely. Who are you building trust with, Dawn?
Building trust with Katia, so that she knows that she can have that rapport with you and have a relationship, so that she feels safe, that she can talk about what's going on with her.
Absolutely, completely. So your first port of call would be what, Dawn?
maybe I think Florence has just said it, just to speak to her without her parents present, and to try and ascertain what exactly is going on. So maybe
Absolutely. You
could
want to
would an aid interview be appropriate?
possibly, but you'd want to interview the child in the first instance, absolutely, because like some people have already said, you're hypothesizing about the fact that this could have been triggered. Somebody said about Olu leaving. We don't know what's been going on in the family prior to these events, so you would need to definitely interview the child in the first instance to try and find out what is going on within the family. You've got here talk to her, yes, assessing. You've got here ask questions around her relationship, and Godwin's gone back into Olu. I would ask questions around her relationship with her mother. Talk to her without her parents present. Maybe talk to her at school as the home environment. So there'd be things that there'd be ways in which you would want to approach Katia to find out exactly what's been going on and why is it that she is attacking, because it doesn't say that anybody else is under attack, attacking mum specifically. Children have been removed from their parents before when the local authority have deemed that the child is out of the parents' care and control because they're looking at risk and safeguarding of that child. Yeah, so these are possibilities. Okay. She may be meeting violence with violence. Yes, that's what Florence says. Absolutely. There could be, we don't know if mum herself has hit Katia, although it's mum who seems to be bearing the brunt from what the case study has indicated. Okay. All right. Thank you. Contact the teachers and other peers. Yep, your guidance would say that. At that age, would you talk about the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario could be, yes, that the violence escalates to, we've already got a broken arm, to other weapons being used. So you would definitely want to go in there and assess the risk without a doubt. And the chances are that this would be a Section 47 because there are no other laws apart from the police coming in and arresting that would be appropriate for using this with this child. Okay, so we have got Group 5, Group 6. Do you think there's a family issue here? Just thought I'd throw that in. Group 5.
Hi. Oh.
Yeah, okay.
This is Group 5. This was the last question. We didn't really have time to discuss it in too much detail, but we said yes, it is a family issue because it affects the whole family. It's affecting the mother, it's affecting Katia, it's probably affecting her siblings who are maybe witnessing the violence, it's affecting her dad, who's, I mean, it doesn't say in the case study that he's actually seen her be violent. It says
he's heard it.
He's heard her being disrespectful and verbal behavior, but I guess it would just affect the whole dynamic of the family in general, and probably have quite a negative impact on all of them. So yeah, it is a family issue.
Yeah, thank you, Florence. So it's interesting as well, just to pick up on what Darlington said, just to return to what I was saying earlier on about children. It's interesting because you said, Darlington, and again, what do people think? You said, Darlington, it's unnatural for a child to hit the parent. Is it unnatural for the parent to hit a child? Any response? Darlington, do you want to respond to that? I don't want to put you on the spot, but it was interesting use of language. You see where I'm going with this, Darlington?
Yeah, that's right. You see, when I said it's unnatural, because naturally when a child is being raised by a parent, looks at the parent as a role model, and there is that fear that is inherent in a child, that you can't hit your parent. So in this case, if she's crossing the boundaries to that extent, surely there must be something that needs to be investigated. Why is she going beyond her boundaries like that?
So is it going, if the parent was to hit the child, is that going beyond boundaries?
Traditionally, that's it's a way of correction.
Okay.
It's only that some overdo it, but the whole idea is not to harm the child. But there are some instances where people, they can overdo it and without realizing they're harming their children.
Okay, so again, that puts us back to the very first questions I put to you, that whether you hit a child, is it intentional? And you've just said if you overdo it. So how do you assess, how do you measure overdoing it? I'm not just putting that to you, Darlington, I'm putting it to the whole class.
Okay.
I don't know. Are there legal guidance on smacking children? Are we talking about not leaving the mark? But I'm saying that if we are, that can I condone it? It's all I don't, right. Are we saying that it's still okay even if you don't leave a mark? Is it still okay to use that form of discipline? So these are things that, again, people, you need to think about, especially if you're entering in people's homes, and you need to be really clear about where your values, what your values are, because without being clear about what your values are, may well confuse, and it could, you know, end in a very sort of unsatisfactory or incomplete assessment because you're giving mixed messages. Could be contentious. Some skins may show marks more easily than others. I'm still on the point of, is it okay to use smacking as a form of discipline? So again, you know, whether you leave a mark or not, these are things that you need to consider. Is it okay to use that?
While it's still on, I think there's something that you mentioned, Catherine, on earlier on, when you said the physical marks may be visible, but it is the psychological that may have a long-term effect. So when you're asking that question, it's a bit worrisome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's something to think about, isn't it, Darlington?
Yeah, something to really to think about the psychological damage, the psychological harm. It can be long term. The physical scars are the ones that we see, they can heal, but the psychological, they are invisible, they may never heal.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Okay, well, I'm going to round up there. Again, this is crossing into different legislation. The reason why I raise this is because, again, looking at a particular form of domestic abuse that is not covered under our current legislation, it will be, I hope, built into the, at the moment, sitting bill that is yet to be made into legislation. So that's yet to come out. But thank you for your time and your patience. Again, taking you through the case study, I'm hoping that people will do exactly the same when it comes to reading the case studies that we're going to be providing for the assessments in January. Read what's there. You can hypothesize, but don't bring in things that are not there. And of course, hypothesizing is important. It's always a what if, you know, looking at the possibilities of this. But yeah, stick to what is there and try not to bring in stuff that isn't. All right, I'm going to let you go. Jonathan, did you want to say anything? Jonathan, are you still with us? I think Jonathan, come in. Okay, if there isn't anything else, I will end the session. you may all leave, and see you next week where we do start the journey of the Care Act. Thank you.